Hello everybody, and welcome to Theology 101. Many Christians recite either the Apostles' Creed or the Nicene Creed on a weekly basis. These creeds summarize the foundational beliefs of Christianity. Now there is a phrase from both creeds that has caused controversy in church history. He descended into hell. The phrase refers to what happened to Jesus after he died on Friday and before he resurrected on Sunday. So did Jesus descend to hell after he died? If not, where did he go? Let's jump in to find out. First, we need to define the word hell. If by hell a person means the place of torment where unbelievers reside after death, then the answer is clearly no. However, the word hell has a different meaning before the time of Christ than our time. Ancient Jews believed that every person, both the righteous and unrighteous, will go to Sheol after death. I made a video explaining what Sheol is in case you missed it. But in summary, Sheol is a place of the dead. Jacob thought of himself as going to Sheol after he died, along with King David. Within Sheol, the righteous will be in a place called Abraham's bosom, while the unrighteous will be in a place that is later called Hades. So when the early Christian writers wrote the Apostles and Nicene Creed, what they meant by saying that Jesus descended into hell is that Jesus descended to Sheol, or the realm of the dead. This means that Jesus experienced death, like all human beings do. His body was buried, and his soul departed to the place of the dead. Since Christians agree that Jesus really died and his soul departed from his body, the question is this: where did his soul go after he died? There's one passage that addresses this topic directly. For Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the spirit, in which he went and proclaimed to the spirits in prison, because they formerly did not obey, when God's patience waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is 8 persons, were brought safely through water. Baptism, which corresponds to this, now saves you, not as a removal of dirt from the body, but as an appeal to God for a good conscience through the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who has gone into heaven and is at the right hand of God, with angels, authorities, and powers having been subjected to him. Now, this passage is highly debated in its meaning, with lots of different theories. However, I think that when we take a closer look, we will see how this passage explains what Jesus did after his death. The context is that the Apostle Peter is encouraging Christians who are suffering during his time by connecting their suffering to that of Christ's suffering. He argues that even if Christians were to suffer to the point of death, his or her suffering is purposeful, since death is not the final word. Why? Christ has conquered death through his death, resurrection, and ascension. Peter speaks about the 3 main events in Jesus' life. He mentions Jesus' crucifixion with the phrase, put to death, Jesus' resurrection with the phrase, made alive, and his ascension with the phrase, gone into heaven. While recounting these 3 events, there's a phrase that talks about what Jesus did between his crucifixion and resurrection, in which he went and proclaimed to the spirits in prison. Theologians have interpreted this phrase in different ways, but the consensus sees it as referring to what Jesus did between his death and resurrection. If it does refer to that time, then Peter is saying that Jesus went to Sheol to proclaim his victory over Satan, sin, and death. Why do I say that? The place of the dead, or Sheol, was not just viewed as a place where people went, but the place where demons reside. This is important because when Peter mentions spirits in prison, it seems that the spirits are referring to demons or fallen angels. Why do I say that? Because Peter is most likely referencing 1 Enoch when mentioning the spirits in prison. Remember that the book of Jude quotes 1 Enoch, and 1 Peter follows the same tradition as Jude. In fact, the standard Jewish interpretation of this passage is that Peter is referencing Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 4, which is a story of fallen angels impregnating women on earth. This story happens during the time of Noah, which is why Peter references the days of Noah when talking about the spirits who are in prison. The idea of spirits or fallen angels being imprisoned in the realm of the dead also fits with the description of Satan's future imprisonment in Revelation chapter 20, verse 7. Finally, notice the language Peter uses. He says that Jesus went, which implies that Jesus left earth to go to another place, and has gone, when talking about when Jesus ascended from earth to heaven. So we see language of Jesus moving from earth to Sheol, then later to heaven. So in 1 Peter chapter 3, Peter describes what took place between Jesus' death and resurrection. Jesus' soul departed his body, and he went to proclaim victory over death to everybody in Sheol, which included fallen angels. This explains why Peter says that angels, authorities, and powers are all subjected to Jesus. This is the same type of language the Apostle Paul uses, so that at the name of Jesus, every knee should bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Do you see how Paul describes 3 places? Heaven, earth, and under the earth? Under the earth refers to the realm of the dead. So Christ proclaimed his victory to those under the earth after his crucifixion. Then he proclaimed his victory to those on the earth after his resurrection, and later to those in heaven after his ascension. In other words, Christ proclaimed his victory over fallen angels in Sheol, humans on earth, and angels in heaven through his death, resurrection, and ascension. Both 1 Peter chapter 3 and Philippians chapter 2 declares that Jesus has authority over all those in heaven, on earth, and under the earth, or the place of the dead. 1 Peter chapter 3 describes how that happened. So did Jesus descend to Sheol after he died? Yes. This is what took place between Friday and Sunday. And by descending to Sheol, Christ also brought with him the Old Testament saints from Sheol to be with him in heaven until he returns to earth to reign forever. No longer do Christians go down to Sheol, but we go up to be with Jesus in heaven because he has accomplished victory over Satan, sin, and death through his death and resurrection. Thank you to today's sponsor, Awe and Reverence. They offer a free digital worship music app called Maskell. If you want to find out more about it, I'll leave some links in the description box below. If you missed the previous video about Sheol, I'll leave a link here for you to watch. Until next time, see you.